Hello everyone, my name is Hilary Mackay. I'm from Australia. I'm studying my undergraduate degree at the University of New England, 6 hours north of Sydney, and I've just come over here for my first field trip experience with the Bamburgh Research Project up at Bamburgh Castle. I've just spent 4 weeks there as one of the students, and I've come to talk about that experience and to help other undergraduate students with advice and to help on their journey to their first field school. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Bamburgh Research Project staff that helped me during the dig, and also my lecturers and peers at UNA, particularly Professor Melanie Filios, who helped me on my way to the project and helped me get myself ready for my first ever field project. So firstly, I'd like to talk about my first top tips about starting your first field project. Firstly, what I did when I first applied, I did my research, made sure that I was applying to the right place and made sure that I was looking for the right archaeology. I was finding my, I was applying for the right project. I was finding something that I was interested in. And once I applied, I made sure that I didn't forget anything on the way over here, like sunscreen and basic things. And then also, while I was here, I made sure I really got involved and I filled up my address book full of contacts while I was over here, particularly as I'm a long way from home, from Australia, and I joined an international field project for the first time, which was quite overwhelming. And while on Bamburgh Research Project, there was a lot of opportunities to get involved and try different types of archaeology, like in the trench, in the finds section where we cleaned a lot of bone and periwinkles, and then also in the environmental department where we filtered through a lot of backlog from previous years of environmental samples, where we were mainly looking for botanical remains, mainly from the Anglo-Saxon times. So we found a lot of charred seeds and a lot of charcoal. And then my last top tip for any students joining a field project would be to enjoy yourself, because usually you're going to be there for a long time, and if you don't enjoy yourself, you're going to be quite miserable in the trench. So yeah, how to choose a field school. What I did was I did a lot of research, and I didn't actually decide to come on a field school until the end of last year. And it took a lot of researching to find an appropriate field school. So I knew that I knew what suited me. I had my budget I'm on a student budget, and that meant that I needed to find a particular field school, as I know many field schools that I'd found were quite expensive. And I looked for the kind of location that I wanted to go to. So I knew I wanted to come to Europe for a field school, and I narrowed it down to the UK because I can only speak English, so that made things a lot easier. And then I also decided on my interests, which also kind of tied into the location. I knew I wanted to come to Europe and study something in medieval archaeology, which narrowed me straight down onto Bamburgh Castle. I also needed to think about logistics. I needed to figure out if my university studies tied in with the field school, and if I could afford actually getting over here, and if I had enough money to feed myself once I actually got here, those kind of things. And I also talked to a lot of people who get their experiences for their past field school experiences. So I knew what I was kind of in for. And then I did a lot of research. Once I narrowed down on my budget and my interests, I did a lot of research on with those things in mind. So I used initially I emailed a lot of universities and academics. However, in my case, I found that a lot of academics were actually writing up their papers from their field experiences, so I couldn't join any of their projects. However, a lot of local societies, archaeology institutions like museums, the Council for British Archaeology, and heritage sites actually run field schools, and that is how I found the Bamburgh Research Project. I also found a lot of advertisements for the Bamburgh Research Project through social media. Laura Nofi, who is the outreach officer for Bamburgh Research Project, did a lot of advertising for the project and for students, and I actually found quite a few things on Twitter and through the blog that she writes each season. A lot of archaeology institutions, such as the Council for British Archaeology, advertise field schools. So if you, I also found that many field schools are advertised in the fieldwork opportunities on the CBA website. And there are also a lot of local archaeology societies that are run by local archaeologists or through universities that will also advertise archaeology projects. And if they are not currently running any archaeology project or field schools, or in my case, I found that a lot of universities over in the UK weren't admitting international students due to COVID, but they were also happy to refer you to other projects or other institutions that were running other projects. So here's a list of some other great resources, such as Council for British Archaeology, and Australia and America also have their own archaeology associations. In many universities, you'll find that majority of universities here in the UK will have their own archaeology societies. Emailing academics, you'll find that that is always incredibly helpful. Majority of academics who reply to you are very nice and will either kindly say that they don't have anything happening or will happily take you on as a student onto their field projects. Archaeology of Scotland, quite similar to the Council for British Archaeology. There's also Dig Ventures, which I found was quite expensive for my student budget, but they also run quite a lot of community archaeology. Museums and research heritage sites and archaeology have archaeology projects attached to them. So they're quite easy to find through them. Preparation, how to prepare for your first field project. Personally, as I've been studying my undergraduate during COVID, I haven't had a full proper archaeology field experience before, so I was a bit lost when I started preparing myself. Luckily, the staff of the Bamburgh Research Project were very helpful and accommodating to me as a first field experiencing student, and they told me what kind of things that would be useful. I was first told that steel cap boots would be the thing to use, but they told me that normal hiking boots are fine, which was easier to pack. I also I was expecting, coming from Australia, that the UK will be a lot colder, but I was wrong when I finally got here. Apparently it does get a bit warm here in the UK as well. So prepare for all seasons. At Bamburgh Castle, we managed to get all 4 seasons in one day. So you're making sure that you have bring weatherproofs, warm gear, cool gear as well, because one day you might get sun, rain and bugs in the trench all in one day. Excavation tools. I wasn't quite sure which tools I needed to bring, especially as I was coming all the way from Australia. Luckily, the Bamburgh Research Project supplied majority of the excavation tools, and actually sold trowels. So I bought my first ever trowel through the Bamburgh Research Project, and this was also most student-run field schools will do the same. And don't forget that you'll need more sunscreen than you expect, and overpacking is better than underpacking. I was quite surprised that I actually got turned into a bright red tomato coming over to the UK. I forgot my sunscreen. Also, when you're preparing, you also need to think about what else do you need to know before you go. Personally, this is part of my studies, so I needed to know what my personal research goals are. I needed to know what information from the site I needed for my assignments back home. And also, what are the research goals of the field school, which is also very helpful for a first-time student. This helps with knowing how an archaeology field school runs, and also an archaeological field project runs, not just a field school, but an actual project. Something fantastic about the Bamburgh Research Project is that it also runs not just as a field school, but has an actual field project. So it's a great way to learn how these things actually kind of run, which was great as a first-time field student. Also, another thing to know is do a lot of research, background information of the place you're going to. So I did a lot of research on Bamburgh Castle and its history, which I personally found very, very helpful. Just keep digging. So when I finally got there, I was a little bit unsure of what I was supposed to be doing. But luckily the staff were incredibly helpful, and are always happy to help. And most of them don't bite, which was quite lucky. And while I was there, I learnt that I had quite my own perception on what the field school is going to be like, but just not being afraid to learn and getting involved as much as possible is a great way to get involved in the trench. But also, field projects aren't just the trench, which was interesting for me, because I thought just digging holes was going to be in the next 4 weeks, but I was able to work in environmental department where we sifted through buckets of soil. I also was in the fines where we were brushing bones from the past few seasons. I was also in the archive. I was lucky to nose through some of the boxes of bones and all the other Anglo-Saxon treasures that they'd found in previous years. Getting to know your peers is, many people think that on their first archaeological field trip or field school, they'll just be digging. But a very important thing to remember when on an archaeological field trip would be to getting to know the people you're with, getting to know the other students, and filling up your address book, even getting to know the staff. Many of the staff on the Bamburgh Research Project were completing their masters or PhDs, and also similar in age to me. Not that that matters, but I was able to make quite a few contacts with staff and students when I was there. So making contacts when you're on your field trip is incredibly important. Another thing is learning as many skills as possible. And these can be found in the Archaeology Skills Passport. Australia has their own version that was inspired by the British Archaeology Skills Passport. And this is very handy to bring along to a field school. So you know which skills you want to learn, and also so staff, your teachers can tick off skills as you go along. I didn't actually bring my skills passport because I forgot, and I didn't actually think of bringing it. But 4 weeks later, I now wish I had, because your skills passport can be used in the future to show the things that you have learned and the things that you can do. For example, I learned to do field drawings, fines drawings, several things for the trench in fines and in environmental, but I also learned how to do context sheets, GIS, all those kind of things that are really important and very helpful to tick off in your skills passport. Another thing to do when you're outside of the trench is to get involved with events outside of the field trip, such as this conference here, and other archaeology events, such as the Festival of Archaeology. Also, while I was at Bamburgh Research Project, there was a medieval fair. So things like that, of just getting involved within archaeology, that really helps with getting to know your peers and really getting involved in the archaeology that you're digging up. Also, this goes for when you're on a field trip, but also just as a regular student, but joining archaeology groups really helps with finding future archaeology field trips and growing your skills. So finally, enjoy yourself. I really enjoyed being a student at the Bamburgh Research Project. It was incredibly interesting, and while we didn't, so this year we were trying to uncover an Anglo-Saxon well that was inside a tower underneath a Victorian witch's cottage. So we found the masonry work for the cottage, but we haven't actually found the well yet. So that was next season's goal. But that was really interesting, being able to explore more than just digging holes and more than just scraping through piles of glass and bone. So being able to get in there with my peers and really learn what a field trip was really useful, and also getting to know staff and getting to know what their own journeys are, because they all had their own set of skills, which was really useful to know, and they're on their own specific career journeys. So that was brilliant. So yes, thank you for listening. I'm not quite sure if that ran into time, but thank you.